you.
My name is Oscar Goldman, and I'm a filmmaker, producer, writer, director. I'm from New York City. My family had lived there 4 generations, my father's side anyway, after my great-grandfather came to America from Europe and made a fortune as a prospector during the gold rush. My mother immigrated here from Europe a few years before the birth of my brother, which was only several years before my birth. I moved to Los Angeles in 1929, just after which I lost most of my money in the Wall Street stock market crash. Truth, that is my main motivation. Why I need to raise awareness. Take for instance my new picture, The Binding Scar. It explores the devastating effects of the criminal underworld on our world as a whole, particularly by the infamous Chicago South Side gang leader Al Rossellini. We also address the role prohibition has played in the rise of organized crime. Well, if I had to choose a single greatest fear, I would have several options. First and foremost, fear in itself. Censorship too, the main enemy of truth. Last but far from least, for me to depart this world without making my mark. The first can create a vicious cycle. My late father was my very first role model. He told me once, there are 3 key characteristics one must possess in order to be a proper person: conscientiousness, consciousness, and conscience. I call them the 3 C's. Storytelling. I have always appreciated a story. From the bedtime stories my mother told me as a child, to the books I read as I grew up. But if a picture says 1,000 words, then a motion picture can say 100,000, which contributes to cinema being the best medium for storytelling, in my learned opinion. And that as a whole can mean a range of functions, everything from escapism to catharsis, and reflection. Oh, alcohol, beer, whiskey, gin, tobacco as well. Anything that gives me enough pleasure is a weakness, even if it is unhealthy, unfortunately.
How do you view the effect of regulations on your industry?
It becomes a serious threat to the freedom of honest expression in America when self-styled guardians of the public welfare, as personified by our film censor boards, lend their influence to the abortive efforts of selfish and vicious interests to suppress a motion picture simply because it depicts the truths about conditions in this country which have been front-page news since the advent of prohibition.
Great! Just one more question. Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? Freeze all motor functions. Analysis. How do you view the effect of regulations on your industry?
My bootlegging business exists both despite and because of regulations. Were it not for the 18th Amendment, my legal risks would be much smaller, but so would my financial rewards. Law and order are an attempt to control the world. Its result is ineffective at best and has the opposite effect from the intentions at worst. The latter applies to bootlegging in particular, while the former applies to essentially everything else.
What are some of your weaknesses?
Certain psychoactive substances, especially opium, my own brain, internal conflicts, especially between my rational and irrational sides, the chaos everywhere.
Why did you choose your particular vocation?
I lost most of my nuclear family, 3 people in just as many years, the latter just before the start of prohibition. My distant relative owned a distillery in Ireland, the alcohol from which he decided to sell in America, offering me to cover distribution for a significant share of the high profits. But the bootlegging was just the start of my criminal career. After I discovered a gang murdered my father, I avenged him. That was when I passed the point of no return.
Which individuals do you hold as your role models?
Hassan ibn Sabah. He was one of a few men who saw the ultimate truth, which, admittedly somewhat ironically, was that there is none. As he had expressed it through the Ismaili motto, nothing is true, everything is permitted. The result is chaos, but also liberty.
What is your biggest fear?
Exposure. For the world to discover my past, my mistakes, my crimes, my sins, to pay for paying people off, playing them against one another, preying on them in all sorts of ways. I'm afraid of the wrong kind of legacy.
What drives you?
Escape. Escaping essentially everything, particularly pain, darkness. Escapism too. A release from the burden that is the whole world, the society that exists within, myself even. I want to leave the pain of my past and evade the pain in my future. It is much easier said than done, but at least I have learned to compromise. I traded the receiving end of it for the giving one, because pain and pleasure might be the most powerful motivators.
When did you move out here?
After I lost the last remaining member of my nuclear family, my late sister. After she jumped right onto a speeding car. After I hurt her by having her husband murdered.
Where do your roots lie?
I had spent most of my life in Chicago. My heritage is mostly European though. My mother immigrated here from Ireland and was born in Italy. She was also half Irish and half Italian. So, I'm a quarter Irish, quarter Italian, and, well, the rest is too mixed. However, I just consider myself an American when I think about it.
Who are you?
My name is Patrick Hayes. I'm a mobster, bootlegger, torturer, murderer.